Okay, great, everyone. We're thrilled to have so many of you present today at this update call on the rapid assessments of programs and also on midterm planning and the program review in general. We have Katrin with us, who is the overall action leader in our region for the program review and the RAPs. I'll just ask her just in a minute to give us a short hello and welcome to everyone and a short intro as well on what's coming up. And I'd also like to introduce Felicitas Plötz, who's with us from the international office team. She's an advisor in the RAP process as well. So welcome to Felicitas as well.
Good morning. Thank you, Rosie.
Great. And 30 participants. We're really happy to have you all in and welcome everyone once again, also to the newcomers. So without further ado, I think we can start. Basically, the objective of this call is to bring you all on board and inform you on the upcoming rapid assessments of programs process that's going to be a big process occupying a lot of our work for the first half of the year, not only in our region but across the whole federation. And this call in particular is also to inform those of you who are more directly involved in the process and to answer any questions you may have already. And now I'd like to pass over to Katrin just to give you some welcoming words.
Thank you, Rosie. Good morning, good afternoon, whatever is the time where you are right now. There is one thing when I'm thinking about the RAP, I think the way we have by now acknowledged sustainable paths, this is a parallel, right? This is what's coming up now. In 2012, we had sustainable paths, which globally they say it was a cutting exercise. Rapid assessment of programs and program review should look at the target group, if we are reaching the target group and if the programs are up to date. But I think we can all very proudly say that in the sustainable path we did not just cut, we did the same. So this is really very similar. But it's just as big and it's just as overwhelming in a way, and we will many of us, most of us, will spend the next half year with it, and then program review will become something which is regular, which will be regular in our daily life. So I'm very happy, of course, that Rosie is leading it. I'm very confident we have everybody who is necessary for us to have a positive outcome, a successful outcome of it. Even it will be challenging. By the way, it definitely will be challenging because it does entail also the objective of saving money to use it then elsewhere, and I think 99% of our programs anyway are for the target group and up to date, and if we innovate, if we reintegrate, if we do things like that, we can't perhaps save so much. This is also what we have experienced, but anyway, we have the people in place, all of you, to do it well, to support the countries. So best of luck, and let's work together through this period of challenging exercise. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Katrin. And basically, before we start, also just to let you know that, so the management team sent out the package of tools and a letter before Christmas to their member associations, which was then followed up by a letter by Katrin. We already had a first call with NDs before Christmas, and we have the second one coming up tomorrow, where basically we'll be presenting basically the same content, but it's for a different audience, and just in order to give you guys also enough space for questions and answers, we decided to have two separate calls. Okay, the agenda of today's meeting is that Elizabeth will give you an overview of midterm planning and program review and the link to Strategy 2030 as strategy advisor. And then I will continue presenting you the general program review scope, objectives and benefits, and then explain a little bit more about the rapid assessment of program methodology as one component of the program review. Thereafter, I will present the roles and responsibilities and also the timeline, the overall timeline that's envisioned. And finally, a brief sketch of general to-dos. There's a how-to guide of the rapid assessment of programs. I shared that with you before Christmas as well. So this presentation is basically a summary of the content in the how-to guide, and you can read up on more details later on. And of course, you can always contact me as well if you have more questions further on.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Rosie. Midterm planning and program review, and how does it link to Strategy 2030? You all know Strategy 2030 by now, and you know the two Strategy 2030 goals, the two main goals until 2030. They are further broken down into the new strategic initiative. We have 7 strategic initiatives, and then even further into the top priorities until 2020, the Federation top priorities until 2020. We have one strategic initiative specifically dedicated to innovate alternative childcare, SI1, including also innovate and grow alternative childcare and deepen its integration. And within those priorities until 2020, we have one action specifically dedicated to the program review, that is Action Federation 1.4. Identifying promising practices as well as locations that need to be set in different ways in order to increase the impact on our target group. So this is the review of existing programs. All this will feed into the national strategies to 2020, so to the strategic direction of the MA, and the NA midterm frame. It's called midterm frame. It's a sort of midterm strategy light, but the official term in this case is midterm frame. I don't know how far you are aware of this, that with the new strategy, I mean, you all know it, but probably not so much in detail. With the new strategy, the Federation planning process has been updated and adapted to the new strategy, and it foresees a two-phase planning approach. It allows for an annual and for a midterm view on planning and also reviewing. Also, the reviewing practice has been adjusted, and this comes along with a new sequencing of planning as well, for the first half year for the midterm perspective in spring, and the second half year for the annual perspective. So what this means is that all MAs, all MAs, also all PSAs and PSAs, and also the GSE will be required to develop a midterm frame in the first half of this year. What does this mean, midterm frame? It means a general frame, a general midterm plan, not full-fledged, but a midterm plan light, a light approach. Yeah, not a full plan, including a detailed resource planning, but only a frame. It takes out a bit of pressure. primates, it allows now more time to focus on the program review. Yeah, the midterm frame will be based on the impact of the program review, on the 2030 contribution, and the focus will be on the strategic input, strategic direction of the MA, of course, taking into consideration the different local contexts and environments and the internal readiness of the MA. Financial, like detailed financial planning or human resource planning will not happen now, but only 2018 for annual planning then. But for now, there's a phasing into the midterm planning, and it means the midterm frame until, the midterm frame. The different steps, so far, Rosie mentioned it already, the preparation is already started. Information has gone out to MAs on the process, and documents have been sent. There will be a facilitator training next week. I'll come to that actually later in this hour. And then there'll be a kickoff meeting with TSC leadership and PSAs, also end of January, beginning of February in Innsbruck. Rosie had a call with national directors already last year, and one more later this week as orientation for this, and the rapid assessment of programs then will start or have partly started. Then, from March to May, the midterm planning workshops will take place, where the whole federation will develop their midterm frames, so NAs, PSAs, and HEC. And then in June, all this will be brought together into the federation frame. There'll be a big strategy meeting in June, where there'll be an agreement on the way forward towards implementation of program changes and like steering the organization for 2020 and ultimately 2030.
All right, I'll continue now with program review scope, objectives, and benefits. First of all, I'd like to zoom out a little bit and just give you an overview of what actually program review is being defined as on federation level, because I think it's being used in different ways, and it would be important that we all have the same understanding. So basically, program review has 4 elements and is designed to provide a baseline on almost all program units as a kickoff of the new strategy. So basically what this includes are, on the one hand, health and education assessments, which are going on in other regions. So EUCB actually already did the education alignment, kindergarten and school alignment process. So this first element isn't relevant for our region. Then, as a second element, is the rapid assessment of programs, the RAP, as is the abbreviation, and this is basically a prescribed methodology, which all the MAs that are doing it will be using, so certain MAs are not taking part, which are basically sustainable paths for member associations if they are on track with their agreement. So basically the third element are then re-innovations that are ongoing, and it's also expected that the outcome of the RAP, so the recommendations that come out, will result in new re-innovations as well. And finally, the fourth element is that also PSAs are expected to do a program review, and the timing is still to be decided on that. Basically, how we've set up the rapid assessments of programs. So element 2 in our region is that the 16 MAs which are doing it, which I'll present to you later in more detail, will then also do the strategy, an update of their strategies, as Elizabeth already mentioned, in light of basically the new 2030 strategy that we have, and any in-depth assessments that they would require. And then basically this will be included in their midterm frame. The overall objectives. In general, I mean, we have to see this as a chance for MAs to reflect and align their programs with the mission of the organization and the new strategy, with a focus on quality, impact, relevance, and efficiency, as Katrin already mentioned. So federation-wide, a key objective is that all programs do increase their impact and local financial sustainability in line with the new strategy. And also that proactive program change is aligned within MA midterm planning, and of course embracing guiding documents for our work, which are of course the UN guidelines for alternative care and the new guidelines on the reintegration of children living in alternative care, but also other guiding international external frames, internal frames, and also any existing analyses that member associations have done on a national level should be considered. Then another thing is that, as Elizabeth mentioned, we have a new kind of longer planning cycle, which is being initiated this year. And this is also, so the program review is seen as a first step towards results-based management in the future. So basically, we should have these types of regular self-evaluations as part of the future program cycle. And then finally, also a key objective is to improve decision-making and collaboration between the three key stakeholders and levels that we have in the organization, the member associations, PSAs and GSCs, regarding program changes. And so the tri-party involvement of these three key stakeholders is also a big benefit of the program review. So in essence, as I already mentioned, it's basically a self-evaluation that MAs are carrying out with feedback from IORs and PSAs in light of the new strategy. And then, of course, the recommendations coming out will be an input to the strategy and the midterm frames. Another benefit that we saw in the pilot in Bosnia is that so the rapid assessment of programs is quite a high-level assessment, and what comes out are rather crisp recommendations for communication to management. So this would be another benefit that we should be communicating to member associations as well. And of course, as we all know, the program review also has a financial objective. As was already communicated in the planning letter that was sent out in August or September, there's a 15% cut coming towards MAs in the self-sufficiency cluster, which will have huge implications on the member associations in our region. And basically what the aim is that the program review should free up funds by the end of involvement of health and education facility and running cost reduction. So that's the basic aim, and then in order to ensure more significant investments by 2020, so that MAs have money available for program development and fundraising development. So we'll see how this develops further. We don't have final targets yet for our region. I believe Katrin has a meeting today with Tom to discuss in more detail. But what we have to bear in mind is that in our region, we've already done a huge amount of work on kind of relevance of our target group. So yeah, it may then mean that core programs are affected by these cuts in the future. I don't know, Katrin, if you want to add anything at this point.
This is where the challenge comes in, right? Because we are going to save over years, that's for sure. However, how can we in the Federation release so much already in 18 in order to invest, in order to save? So I can see there is a big conflict of the timing and what is realistically potential or possible, sorry, in the region. But there is a commitment that investments will be available. And of course, it's also clear that there will be savings over years of the subsidies. We get better in government subsidies. We get better in fundraising ourselves. We already do year by year. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thanks. Okie dokie. Now, going more deeply into the rapid assessments of programs methodology. So this prescribed methodology that federation-wide member associations will be expected to follow in the coming months. What's important here is the word rapid. So basically what we should be communicating to MAs is that they're not expected to do a huge detailed assessment based on the questions and the indicators provided, but it should be a rapid and very high level assessment, because basically coming out of the rapid assessments of programs are recommendations, and also further, perhaps there'll be a further need for analysis which they can put as an action in their midterm frame. So this is definitely a key message that we should be purporting to member associations. So who is actually doing the RAP? It's 16 MAs in UCB. In total, it's actually more now because we added Israel and Russia. So Israel and Russia, they came forward and said that they would be interested in also participating in the RAP. So in that case, actually the total...
No, it's 16 in total.
Yeah, the total is 16, true, and the international total is actually then 86 if you count the two member associations that are also doing it in UCB. So yeah, it will be actually 15 because Bosnia, as you all know, was the pilot country for the RAP and has already completed it. But yes, these will be the countries that will be doing it. And the main areas, as Katrin quite rightly mentioned at the beginning, is the three areas of relevance for the target group: impact and quality, and resource efficiency. So the guiding questions that MAs should be asking themselves is, are we reaching the right beneficiaries through our programs? Are we doing our best to maximize impact for our beneficiaries? And are we using funds in a responsible and efficient way? And in the RAPs, different information sources will be used. So quantitative data has been aggregated from central systems. So each MA has basically a data sheet with the data already inserted and rated according to benchmarks that have been defined. Then the MA will also be expected to do an assessment of qualitative questions. So there's a catalog of qualitative questions that MAs can answer per location. And they should also, as I previously mentioned, consider previous evaluations that they've done, audit reports, any national assessment, any external evaluations, and so on and so forth. And then basically based on these different information sources, recommendations are formulated by the MA and also then by the IOR and PSA, and then during the workshop these recommendations are agreed upon and then formulated and transferred into the midterm frame. So basically the process is a big chunk of the process happens on the online platform. So there's a workspace for EUCB on the virtual collaboration platform, and then the second part will be the face-to-face RAP workshop, which is 1 to 2 days within the midterm planning workshop that MAs will be carrying out. So the ratings of the RAP criteria are the basis for the recommendation for each program unit. So basically there's ratings of the indicators, so that are aggregated from the central system, so on these quantitative indicators, and the ratings are done based on the clusters. And then also the recommendations are rated by each party. So basically the MA gives itself, based on the qualitative questions, based on previous assessments, and based on the datasheet indicators, the MA then gives itself an overall rating per program unit on relevance, impact, and the quality and resource efficiency. And the IOR and the PSA also does this. And basically the idea behind it is that bias is minimized due to the tri-party involvement, so that everyone, the three stakeholders, have to come to an agreement. So that is how bias is minimized in the process, or is envisioned to be minimized. And then basically coming out of that, as I just mentioned, recommendations for each program unit are formed, and there's 4 categories for recommendations. The first one would be promising practice, so it means that there's no significant change in the program, and the promising practice can be shared with other member associations across the federation. Then another recommendation category would be no significant change. The program unit will more or less continue under the current scope of services. However, there might be minor changes in beneficiary services or staff. Then a third recommendation category would be significant change. The program unit will be modified, re-innovated, change of services, activities, target group, type of intervention, location or partnership. And finally, a fourth recommendation could be end of SOS involvement. So the operation and ownership of the program unit and respective properties will be handed over, or the unit will be closed. So yes, as previously mentioned, the recommendations form the basis for the MA midterm frames, as will the strategy. But it's important to mention here that any unit for which a significant change or an end of involvement is proposed, they have to do a more deeper assessment later on, so they should include this in their midterm frames. So, to give you a process overview, what are the different steps that are involved? So there's 6 different steps in the rapid assessment of programs in the RAP. The first one would be the preparation of the review, and right now we are actually in this phase. So MAs have received the link to the datasheet. We're trying to get everyone on board. This is also the idea behind this call with the region, to give you an overview of the process and what's to come. And MAs have already, or should already be slowly starting to check their data sheets to see whether the information provided or already inserted is correct. Then basically the second phase is to conduct the review. So MAs are expected to fill in the data sheets, and to have an internal dialogue among the NMT or among location staff. That's up to the member association to decide on the qualitative questions. And then basically to insert their proposed recommendations. And then basically the third phase would be the virtual review dialogue. So international officers, regions, and PSAs provide input on the platform. Then, as already mentioned, MAs will have the chance to update their strategy, and also perhaps they might want to start doing an in-depth assessment already. It depends on the nature of the member association and the case in question. And then we have the 5th phase, which is the RAP and the midterm frame workshop, where basically the 3 stakeholders agree on the way forward. And then this agreement is signed. And what does this mean in terms of timing? So basically, the first and second phases, so the dialogue phase within the MAs should be completed ideally by mid-February. So we've basically given this rough deadline to member associations, but of course if their workshop is at a later stage, we can negotiate different timelines, but mid-February would be ideal so that especially you guys in the IOR and also PSAs have enough time to provide input, because it is a huge number of member associations and a number of people involved, so it may take some time. So you should be bracing yourselves to basically start more intense work in mid-February up to the member association workshop. So basically what I communicated to you already is that there'll be kind of different task force teams supporting each MA during the RAP process, which basically also helps then the CVI rep formulate the statement from the regional side, which he or she will then be presenting at the workshop. So we see that this task force will have to delve into the templates, check what the MA has inserted already, and then during a task force call per MA to come to an agreement on the recommendation from IOR perspective. Then basically in March, MAs will have the chance to update their strategies as is possible. The timing is very tight. And also any in-depth assessments that they wish to do prior to the workshop. But yes, as we already mentioned, this may also be then put in the midterm frame for further work then throughout the year or in the coming years as well. And from March to May, the strategy workshops will take place, which include the RAP workshop and the midterm planning workshop. And basically how the IORs are involved in that is that we have a pool of facilitators, which we'll just present you the names later on, and also GSC participation in the workshop. So the CVI rep will be part of the workshop, MSAs probably as well, and then any functional expert that is needed during the workshop, depending on the MA case, will also take part. And then, as Elizabeth already mentioned, there'll be the 2030 Come Together meeting in June, which has been described as a mini GA, a mini General Assembly, bringing national directors together, right, Elizabeth? And key stakeholders in the federation and in PSAs, managing directors, management teams. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they will then sign off the federation midterm frame. Yeah, and then, as Elizabeth mentioned, annual planning for 2018 will commence in September and October. All right, I'd like to show you the overview that we have on the task forces. So if we could just open it. So yeah, if you click on the link, Elizabeth, it'll be easier. Yeah. So this is work in progress, but it's basically an overview of the MAs that are doing the RAP. And then basically we've asked national directors to nominate an MA champion, so basically a national focal point who will be coordinating the process on the MA level. As you can see, it's mainly national program development directors. There's also one finance director who's an MA champion. So nominations are rolling in. I'm still missing a couple. And then basically it's an overview of the CVI rep per MA, the MSA who will be coordinating the rapid assessment of programs, and then also the functional counterparts that will be involved per MA. If you see any mistakes in this list, please feel free to edit it directly yourselves. What I've also included here is the lead PSA per member association and kind of the status of whether they've already been matched or not. And then basically there's 3 columns at the end. Yeah, which basically is just in order to track the key milestones in the process. So from a regional side, whether there could be kind of, or the plan is to have a kickoff message to the MA sent out by the MSA. Just also to say, who in the region will be supporting them, when the workshop date has been agreed upon. So when this kickoff message goes out, and I'll be contacting the MSAs on that anyway. We have a call on Friday, so don't worry, we'll still be discussing this. Then basically we can insert the date of the task force virtual dialogue call, in which the different functional representatives and CVI reps should come to an agreement on the recommendations and statements that they would like to present during the RAP workshop. And then basically, if needed, in the case of complex MAs, there's also the option to have a call prior to the workshop with all the key stakeholders. If it's a big MA, if there's many discrepancies, many differences in opinion that are shown in the dialogue template, then this option is also open. Now, as a next step, I'd like to show you briefly the workspace. So we have our own workspace for EUCB. So as with all workspaces, this is the landing page, but what's really interesting for us is the document section. You're all members of the workspace, so just to show you that there's a folder here on project management and presentations. Today's presentations is saved under presentations, and the overview that we just looked at, the task force teams overview, is saved under project management. Okay, if we go back to documents, these are all the documents that will be visible for all MAs. They have a folder here with RAP information package, where basically the presentation is saved that Katrin and I held with them before Christmas, the letter from the IDR that was sent out to them, the strategy program review letter from the management team, a sheet example of the data sheet, and then we'll look at this briefly in a minute. Program review, what's next, a general presentation on the introduction, and the how-to guide that I mentioned previously as well. Okay, and then per MA you have different folders which basically include the most important sheet is the NA data sheet, which everyone will be working on. So there's one sheet per MA, and then the NA can also upload any preparatory documents. And then the RAP workshop results folder is designed so that the results and presentations of the workshop are uploaded there. And another important folder is the reference documents folder. So this is just basically one Word document with links to internal and external guiding policies and documents that MAs should refer to. And actually all stakeholders should read before the process begins. Yeah. So basically here you also have the link to position papers that were recently developed by the International Office, in order to give more guidance to different strategic initiatives in the strategy. Okie dokie, I see that time is progressing very quickly. I don't want to take too much of your question and answer time, so I'll just quickly outline the NA data sheet. And of course, if you have more detailed questions at a later stage, please feel free to ask. But basically, each data sheet per MA has an introduction page. So here you will find all the elements of the workspace and their purpose and instructions on how to use them. Then there's a second sheet on the data sources. So there's NA level data sources as well as program level data sources, with a detailed description of where the data was aggregated from, the source, the calculation method, the reason for including this particular indicator, and also the benchmarking logic behind. And then basically you have an NA kind of an NA level data sheet where the NA indicators are basically stored, and the country, the only one that the country will have to fill in is this one. So in line 11, number of SOS Children's Villages programs developing alternative care partnerships with governments or other service providers. So yeah, they're expected to fill this in, and then also what would be important is to fill in existing agreements or any re-innovations that are ongoing and that are happening prior to the RAP, or basically the country would not need to do the RAP for this program unit if a re-innovation is ongoing. So that's the NA data sheet. So this would also be expected to be filled in by the member association. And then the health and education tab we can ignore. And then this is basically the program's data tab, in which you have a list of all indicators. Yeah, exactly. So here is the unit name basically and the unit type. So together with your MSA, if the unit names aren't clear, then you could also add the location name and the facility name. And then basically here are the different indicators according to the different categories. So relevance for target group, there's 3 indicators. Impact and quality, there's 2. And resource efficiency and capacity, there's 3. And as you can see, these have been pre-filled, and the MA has the chance to comment on the data or make any corrections. So for example, if the indicator percentage of of children in alternative care in FBC with at least 1 living biological parent is not really relevant because all children are referred from the States, then the MA can comment this in this section.
Sorry to interrupt you. Felicitas is speaking.
Yeah.
You said that the unit name can be adapted. So this is just an example. We inserted these names, but please do not change the unit names, as all different tabs in these Excel sheets are interlinked.
Okay.
So if you change the name, it could be that the dialogue sheet and then the last sheet, the tracking, which you will see in a minute, I guess, doesn't work correctly.
Okay, that's really good. Okay, thanks
but
a lot
you can
for that.
Always, you have always the chance to comment in the comment fields.
Okay, thanks a lot. All right, so basically then in that case, in case a unit isn't clear, then you would just have to agree or clarify it amongst yourselves then in that case. Thanks for clarifying that, Felicitas. Okie dokie. So the next one would be, the next sheet is the qualitative discussion questions. This is just the overview of the questions, and then basically they have a tab per location, which the MA can fill in, and also the IOR response and the PSA response is optional, but IORs can also enter from their work with their MAs any information that they deem relevant for the process. And then basically finally there's the dialogue sheet in which the MA basically gives itself a rating per program unit and per relevance, impact and quality and resource efficiency and capacity section, and then includes a rationale. The IOR does the same, and the PSA as well. And then basically finally there's a tracking sheet, which I won't go into too much detail on. That's for after the workshop. All right, returning to the presentation. Elizabeth, please go ahead.
The whole process, like the RAP and midterm planning process, foresees that it is supported by a trained facilitator. So globally, it's foreseen that we have a group of facilitators supporting this. There'll be a training. There's this group of facilitators which was sort of nominated in the past week. And they will be trained on the RAP workshop and on the midterm planning process and methodology, and in addition with facilitation skills. There'll be a training next week in Innsbruck where we all come together, the whole group globally. And yeah, the facilitators will be required to facilitate 2 to 3 workshops, so either RAP and midterm planning, or for those MAs who don't do the RAP and who have an existing strategy until 2020 already, those MAs will sort of be consulted on the new midterm planning methodology, on the new planning documents, and so on and so forth. So this will happen virtually, so partly there on the spot and partly virtually. We have here this group of facilitators, 2 national directors, 3 of our MSAs, Maya, Sabina, and Sophie, Helga and Sintra from FCC, Lodovaya from HR, and Rosie, and Malin Berghofer, she'll be back from maternity leave. Next week, she'll also get the training in Innsbruck. Yeah, I think possibility already to get on board of what's happening strategy-wise and otherwise in the region and globally. So we're very happy to have this group again. Yeah, here we have an overview of the workshop dates that we already know so far. A couple of dates are still missing. I should be completed by the end of the week. I think we have here the PSA participation at the workshop. This is basically yeah, only for information for you to know when the workshops take place. The most intensive time for the MA will actually be before, as Rosie said, until mid-February, when they do the rapid assessments. Yeah, and here the dates that for you to align also internally with your collaboration with MAs that you have ongoing, that you know these are the dates when the MAs are very busy.
All right, brief overview of the roles and responsibilities. So basically the national director is accountable to deliver quality results overall, and the national management team provides content input from each function and forms a joint view for the MA. And basically there's this one national champion, one national focal point that consolidates the content input from each function in order to form this joint view. Then also the TVI rep is accountable to deliver quality results for the MAs reported at the end of the process, and MSAs coordinate the process in each MA with the CBI rep and the Iowa task force, and is also the counterpart for the MA focal person, and basically towards Elizabeth and I. Basically. And then, yeah, there's Elizabeth and I, Program Review and Strategy Implementation Manager in IOR. As you know, the two of us are working on this topic. And, yeah, we'll be keeping an overview of the process on regional level, answer to any content issues that we have, of course, together with the International Director Region, who is the action responsible overall in the region. And then, yeah, we're the counterparts for MSAs towards any questions ESA or IO may have, and yeah, so that's basically our role. Yeah, this is just to show you that in spite of the fact that many MAs may be funding one MA, there's basically a lead MA that should be coordinating the other MA inputs. Yeah, but this is not irrelevant now. And finally, to-dos for the RAPs. So what are the MAs asked to do right now? They've been asked to check their data sheets and add any corrections if necessary, to discuss the qualitative questions and notes, and also then to fill in the virtual dialogue template. And as I already mentioned, there's also this optional virtual dialogue call with IORs and the CSA prior to the workshop. And also they'll be required to make some logistical arrangements. And from the IOR task force side, it would be important in case for a particular MA you would like to add any more region-specific questions, to add these in the template. So in the qualitative questions sheet, there's at the bottom of the page, there's the opportunity to add more questions, and basically then mid to end of February or up to the workshop, there'll be the chance for the IOR to form a view based on the MA input in the system. And then basically, we recommend to have this joint call to decide on the recommendations per program unit, which will then be presented at the workshop. All right, and finally, this is courtesy of Horovoje, who was facilitating the Bosnia workshop. MC Hammer, let's do the RAPs together. Do you guys have any questions right now? Sorry that we've been talking for most of the time. Maybe we can go back and see.
Hi, it's Caroline. Could you hear me?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. All right. First up, question about targets. Could somebody just clarify for me the dates at which the targets come into the process, and whether those targets will be per region or per MA? Yeah. The financial targets.
I would pass that question on to Katrin, if that's all right, Katrin, since I don't know myself.
The financial targets are regional now. I just had a talk with Tom this morning, who wanted to hear more about the concerns and so on. I have brought up what is the net impact actually of what is foreseen, and this is the challenge which comes after the RAPs. At this moment, the countries have no financial targets. And I also told Tom, who asked me, how about, or how do you deal with the impact? I said, I'm not trying to work this now. Let's do the assessment. Let's do the midterm planning. We will see what the country's future is like, what is the need like. And then we need to see how to find resources for that, or if they are not available, what do we need to do then?
Could I also have a clarification? Are Rosie, you said targets 15% for self-sufficient. My understanding is that's also for other clusters too. So could I just have a clarification on that, please?
That was also my question.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. It would actually affect all MAs that aren't Sustainable Path MAs.
Yeah. So it's wider than self-sufficient only. Yeah. Okay. And then, sorry, just last one from me. This is a much smaller one, but important, I think. Right at the end, you mentioned IOR task force. We can add additional questions for the MAs. But just a comment from me, please, could everybody, if we want to add additional questions, can we please keep them at the RAP level, i.e. high level? Yeah, we sometimes have a tendency to add very detailed comments and questions, but we should have questions at the RAP spirit, which is high level questions, I think. Yes. Yeah.
Great. Thanks a lot. Caroline, for that.
Thanks. Yeah.
Very true.
If I may add, sorry, from my side, because of the pilot in Bosnia, connected what you said now, Caroline, it is on us to keep this main word rapid, because we saw this in Bosnia, and I'm pretty much sure that we will see this everywhere, a tendency to go a little bit more into details that it is expected at the moment. So it is really on us to underline rapid and to keep on this level, even with additional questions or with the process itself.
Thanks a lot, Dan. Yeah. Felicitas.
Rosie, this is Doris speaking. I would like to have your question. Not addressing the RAP, which is the first step, but then the concrete workshop in May, where it's supposed that countries come up with a certain midterm frame. Do we have an idea how these concretely look like? First question. And the results should then flow into a PSA agreement during the summer, if I understood correctly. On the other side, financial planning is considered to be done only during the annual planning 18. So I have difficulties to understand how these two things can go together without having, even if it's on a high level approach, to have a basic, simple financial scenario. What's the impact of a specific response in a location on the subsidy need? Having also in mind that the whole exercise not only but also has the expectations of reducing international subsidies. So here I have several questions which I cannot see that with the current method we can cover that.
Thanks a lot. Elizabeth, do we have a sample template of the midterm frame?
We have a sample template. Of course, I don't have it here to share on the screen, but that what I meant with high level, the high level financial data, I can share it afterwards. It's data that you know that we have already, like local income, international sponsorship funds, international subsidies, and so on. It's not detailed financial data. It's not as detailed as we collected in the Sustainable Path MA. Or we know it from the Sustainable Path.
But the basics, what you mentioned, are in there. That's enough, to know. Okay, thank you.
And Doris, one comment from my side. Felicitas is speaking. So it was intentionally that we left this information out of the data sheets because we really wanted to focus on the programmatic side and on focusing on the quality and the relevance of our programs. But we're working together with the Federation Planning team, and we just decided to also include the financial implications in the results template that will be used during the workshops. So when the three stakeholders got 2 recommendations for each program unit, there will be a prioritization during the workshop where we look at the feasibility and also the impact of these recommendations. And there we have this information on financial implications available.
Thanks for sharing.
Thanks a lot. Any further questions from your side? It's 11, so we at the end, but feel free for any last questions if you have any. And goodbye to those that already have to leave. Thanks a lot for joining. So no final questions for the moment. As I already mentioned, please, when you go into the content, into the data sheets, and you have questions, you can call me anytime, write me an email. I'll try and respond as quickly as possible. And I'll be in contact with MSAs who will basically be bringing you on board in your task force teams. And I hope for all others that aren't directly involved in the RAP that it was also informative. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Yeah, thanks, Rosie. Thanks. That was really helpful. Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you, and bye to everybody.
That's great.
Thank you.
Everyone.